Bloomberg UK correspondent Lizzy joins us now to walk us through some of the possible scenarios.
Good morning, Guy. Well, all the polls suggest that Labour is on course for victory. So the question is, how big will the majority be? Let me take you through those scenarios in likelihood order by the bookmakers. We'll start with the most likely outcome, an unprecedented Labour majority of 250-plus seats. Now, Guy, this was barely conceivable 5 years ago after the last general election, when you'll remember Jeremy Corbyn led Labour to pretty much annihilation versus Boris Johnson's Conservatives. But the polls suggest that this sort of supermajority is what we are going to have. Supermajority, of course, a word imported into the British political lexicon by the Conservatives to warn against untrammelled power for Labour. Starmer, for his part, says that that's a desperate criticism at the last minute. But nonetheless, if they have a majority of this size, Labour would be under serious pressure to be more radical about their plans for economic growth. Bloomberg Economics says that could actually be a boon for the UK economy, because the likes of the Institute for Fiscal Studies say that the plan right now is a bit of a gamble on growth. But let me take you to the next most likely scenario. This is where you have a Labour landslide still, but of a 150-seat plus majority. Now, to put this into historical context, remember back in 1997, Tony Blair had a 179-seat majority. Back in 2019, Boris Johnson had an 80-seat majority. So this would still be a big deal for Keir Starmer, but it would mean that the Conservatives wouldn't go into extinction. So a relief for them at least. Now, let me take you on to the third most likely scenario. This is where the Labour Party only wins a 50-seat majority. I say only. A while ago, this would have been a huge deal. Before Partygate under Boris Johnson, before Liz Truss's 49-day premiership. But these days, this would be somewhat of a disappointment. I can bet you the headlines on Friday, if this is the outcome, would be along the lines of, what went wrong for Keir Starmer? How did the Conservatives manage to stave off such a big defeat? But let me take you on to the next scenario, even less likely in the bookmakers' eyes, a hung parliament. So Labour does win, but they don't get an overall majority. It would raise the question of whether they would go for a minority government or whether they would seek a coalition with Ed Davey's Liberal Democrats, which then raises the question, what would Ed Davey want to extract in exchange for his cooperation? Would he want, for example, proportional representation, closer ties with Europe? Could Keir Starmer stomach that, or would he go back to the public for another general election? Financial markets unlikely to enjoy that sort of instability. Now, finally, I've thrown in a wild card scenario. This is scenario number 5. The Liberal Democrats becoming the main opposition. It would be a huge shake-up of Westminster's two-party system. Not since the First World War have you had another party in opposition except the Labour Party or the Conservatives. It would take the Lib Dems making serious inroads in southern England into Tory heartlands. It's not likely, but it's not impossible.